The maintenance tunnels beneath New Tokyo's spaceport stretched like metal veins through darkness. Marcus Chen wiped grease from his hands as he finished checking the last cooling unit for the day. His shift had ended 20 minutes ago, but he never left work unfinished. The other mechanics had already gone home to their families, leaving him alone in the humming silence of the underground facility. He gathered his tools and started walking toward the exit when a strange sound made him freeze. It was soft, barely audible over the machinery, but definitely there. A whimper. Marcus turned his head, listening carefully. The sound came again from a storage room that should have been empty. Marcus approached the door slowly. The spaceport had strict security, but sometimes homeless people found ways inside during the cold months. He pushed open the door and reached for the light switch. What he saw made him step back in shock. A figure huddled in the corner behind stacked crates. At first glance, she looked human, but Marcus noticed the differences immediately. Her skin had a faint blue tint, like moonlight on water. Dark purple hair fell over her face in tangled strands. Most striking were her eyes when she looked up at him. They were larger than human eyes, completely silver with no visible pupils. She pressed herself against the wall, trembling. Her clothes were torn and dirty, hanging loose on her thin frame. Marcus could see her ribs through the tears in her shirt. She was starving. "Please," she whispered in accented standard. "I mean no harm." Marcus stood frozen for a moment. He had seen many alien species at the spaceport, but never one in such terrible condition. The woman tried to stand but swayed dangerously. Her legs gave out, and she slumped back against the wall. "How long have you been here?" Marcus asked, keeping his voice gentle. 3 days, she said. "Maybe 4. Hard to tell." Marcus noticed an empty water bottle near her feet. No food wrappers, nothing else. She had been hiding here without eating for days. He reached into his lunch bag and pulled out the sandwich he had saved for his break. Turkey and cheese on wheat bread. Nothing special, but her silver eyes locked onto it like it was treasure. "Here," Marcus said, holding out the sandwich. The alien woman stared at him, then at the food. Her hand shook as she reached for it. She took a small bite, then another. Tears started rolling down her blue-tinted cheeks as she ate. Real tears. Just like a human would cry. Marcus felt his chest tighten at the sight. "Thank you," she said between bites. "You don't know what this means." Marcus crouched down to her level, keeping some distance so she wouldn't feel threatened. "What's your name?" "Lyra," she said, still eating slowly as if savoring every bite. "My name is Lyra." "I'm Marcus. What happened to you?" Lyra finished the sandwich and wiped her mouth with a trembling hand. "My ship was attacked by pirates near Jupiter Station. They took everything, cargo, fuel, food, left us drifting. The rescue ships found us, but—" She paused, looking down. "They only had room for registered citizens. I'm from Kepler 442. We're not part of the Federation yet." Marcus knew what that meant. Non-Federation aliens had few rights in human space. No access to shelters, food banks, or medical care unless they could pay. And from the look of her, Lyra had nothing. "So they just left you here?" Marcus asked, anger creeping into his voice. "They dropped me at the spaceport, said I could find work or passage home." Lyra laughed bitterly. "But no one hires Keplerians. They say we can't be trusted, and passage home costs more credits than I've ever seen." Marcus sat down properly, crossing his legs. His knees protested. He wasn't young anymore, pushing 50 with gray creeping into his black hair, but he couldn't walk away from someone in need. His grandmother had raised him better than that. "How did you end up in the maintenance tunnels?" "Security chased me from the main terminal 2 days ago. I found an open vent and crawled inside. I've been moving through the tunnels, trying to stay hidden." She gestured at the storage room. "This seemed safe. Warm. I thought I could rest for a while. Marcus noticed how she held herself, arms wrapped around her middle. Still hungry. One sandwich wasn't enough after days without food. He dug into his bag again and found an apple and a bag of chips from the vending machine. Here, he said, offering them to her. It's not much, but it's what I have. Lyra's eyes widened. She took the food carefully, as if afraid he might change his mind. Why are you helping me? Humans. Most humans wouldn't. Marcus shrugged. Maybe most humans are wrong. As Lyra ate the apple, Marcus studied her more closely. Despite the dirt and exhaustion, he could see she had been beautiful once. High cheekbones, delicate features. Her silver eyes held intelligence and sadness in equal measure. The blue tint to her skin was subtle, like she had been dusted with twilight. He wondered what her life had been like before the pirates destroyed it. You can't stay here, Marcus said. Security does sweeps every few days. They'll find you eventually. Fear flashed across Lyra's face. I know, but where can I go? I tried the embassy, but Kepler 442 doesn't have one here. I have no money, no friends. No one wants to help an alien. Marcus made a decision that would have shocked him an hour ago. But looking at this starving woman, seeing her tears of gratitude over a simple sandwich, he couldn't make any other choice. I have a spare room, he said. It's not much. Just a small apartment near the industrial district, but it's warm and safe. You could stay there tonight? Get cleaned up. Figure out what to do next. Lyra stared at him in disbelief. You would do that? For someone you just met? An alien? You're not just an alien, Marcus said. You're a person who needs help. That's all that matters. Fresh tears spilled down Lyra's cheeks. She covered her face with her hands, shoulders shaking. Marcus waited, understanding. Sometimes kindness hurt more than cruelty when you weren't expecting it. I'm sorry, Lyra said, wiping her eyes. It's been so long since anyone showed me kindness. On my world, helping others is natural, expected. But here, she trailed off. Here can be hard, Marcus admitted. But not everyone has forgotten how to be human. Come on, let's get you out of here before security makes their rounds. Marcus helped Lyra to her feet. She was taller than he expected, matching his height, but she was far too thin, and she leaned on him as they walked. He led her through the maintenance tunnels, taking routes he knew would avoid cameras and checkpoints. They emerged near the employee parking area. Marcus's old electric car sat alone under a flickering light. Nothing fancy, but it ran well enough. He helped Lyra into the passenger seat, noting how she marveled at even this simple vehicle. On Kepler 442, do you have cars? Marcus asked as he started driving. We have transport pods that float on magnetic fields, Lyra said, watching the city lights pass by. But the principle is the same. Moving from one place to another. She paused. I was an engineer there, designed navigation systems for cargo ships. That's how you ended up on that ship. Lyra nodded. I was delivering a new system to Europa Station, my first time leaving Kepler 442. I was so excited to see human space. Her voice turned bitter. Now I just want to go home. The drive to Marcus's apartment took 30 minutes through light traffic. He lived in an older building, red brick with small windows. Nothing special, but it had been home for 15 years, since Maria died and left him alone with memories and empty rooms. Marcus parked and helped Lyra inside. She moved slowly, exhaustion weighing on every step. The elevator was broken again, so they climbed 3 flights of stairs. By the time they reached his door, Lyra was breathing hard. The apartment was small but clean. Marcus had always been neat, a habit from his military days. The living room held a worn couch, an old television, and shelves lined with books. The kitchen was tiny but functional. Down the hall were 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. It's wonderful, Lyra said softly. Marcus almost laughed. Wonderful wasn't a word anyone had used for his apartment before. But then he remembered she had been sleeping in storage rooms and eating nothing for days. Compared to that, his simple home must have seemed like a palace. "The spare room is down here," Marcus said, leading her down the hall. He opened the door to reveal a small room with a single bed, dresser, and window overlooking the alley. "It's not much, but the bed is comfortable. There are clean sheets in the closet." Lyra stepped into the room slowly, running her hand over the bed like she couldn't believe it was real. "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to thank me. Just rest. There's a bathroom across the hall. Towels in the cabinet. Are you hungry? I could make something more substantial than sandwiches." Lyra swayed on her feet. "I think I need to sleep first. Is that okay?" "Of course. Sleep as long as you need. I'll be in the living room if you need anything." Marcus left her to rest and went to his kitchen. He put together a plate of fruit, crackers, and cheese, then filled a pitcher with water. He left both on the dresser in the spare room where Lyra was already curled up on the bed, still wearing her torn clothes. She had fallen asleep instantly. Marcus covered her with a blanket and quietly left the room. In the living room, he sat in his old armchair and tried to process what he had just done. He had brought a complete stranger into his home, an alien woman with no identification, no background he could verify. His friends would call him crazy, but Marcus remembered the tears on her face when he gave her that sandwich, the gratitude in her silver eyes, the way she had trembled from hunger and exhaustion. How could he have walked away? His grandmother's voice echoed in his memory. The measure of a person isn't what they do when everyone is watching. It's what they do when no one is watching and no one would know. Marcus smiled sadly. His grandmother would have liked Lyra, would have taken her in without hesitation and probably fed her until she couldn't eat another bite. She had been that kind of person, taking in strays of all kinds, cats, dogs, lost children, broken adults, anyone who needed help. Hours passed. Marcus dozed in his chair, waking occasionally to check the hallway. Lyra slept through the night and most of the next day. Marcus called in sick to work, something he never did, but he couldn't leave her alone in his apartment, not yet. When Lyra finally emerged, she looked better, still thin and tired, but the rest had helped. She had changed into the clean clothes he had left outside the bathroom, a simple t-shirt and sweatpants that hung loose on her frame. "How long did I sleep?" she asked. "About 18 hours, Marcus said. "You needed it. Hungry?" "Starving," Lyra admitted with a small smile. Marcus cooked breakfast even though it was late afternoon. Scrambled eggs, toast, bacon, orange juice. Simple food, but Lyra ate like it was a feast. She closed her eyes with each bite, savoring flavors that Marcus took for granted. "On Kepler 442, the food is very different," she said between bites. "We have protein blocks and nutrient paste. Efficient, but not much flavor. This," she gestured at the plate. "This is art." "It's just eggs," Marcus said, but he felt pleased. They talked while she ate. Lyra told him about her home world, about cities that floated in the clouds and oceans that glowed at night. She talked about her work, designing systems that could navigate through asteroid fields and cosmic storms. She had been good at it, proud of her achievements. Marcus told her about his life too, his years in the Space Force as a mechanic, meeting Maria on shore leave, their quick marriage, their plans for children that never came, Maria's illness, quick and cruel, the empty years since, working at the spaceport and coming home to silence. "I'm sorry about your wife," Lyra said softly. "It was a long time ago," Marcus said, though it never felt that long. As evening fell, they faced the question neither had wanted to ask. What now? Lyra couldn't stay hidden forever, but she had no legal status, no money, no way home. "I'll find work," Lyra said with forced confidence. "There must be someone who will hire me. I'm a good engineer. I can fix things, design things. I just need a chance." Marcus wanted to believe her optimism, but he knew the reality. Places that hired undocumented aliens paid almost nothing and worked them brutal hours, and that was if they paid at all. Some just used them until they collapsed, then threw them away. "Stay here for now," Marcus said. "Take time to recover. We'll figure something out." "I can't impose on you like that." "You're not imposing. The room was empty anyway, and—" Marcus hesitated, then spoke the truth. "It's nice having someone to talk to again." Lyra's silver eyes studied him for a long moment. "You're lonely too." It wasn't a question. Marcus nodded. "Gets quiet sometimes. On Kepler 442, we have a saying, 'Two solitudes together make a community.'" "I like that," Marcus said. They sat in comfortable silence as night settled over the city. Outside, hover cars hummed past, and neon signs flickered to life. Inside the small apartment, two unlikely friends began to build something neither had expected to find: connection, hope. A tiny community of two solitudes finding they weren't so alone anymore. 3 weeks passed in Marcus's small apartment, and life developed an unexpected rhythm. Lyra had regained some weight, though she was still too thin. Her blue-tinted skin had lost its unhealthy pallor, and her purple hair shone again after proper care. But finding work proved harder than either of them had hoped. Marcus came home from his shift at the spaceport to find Lyra at the kitchen table, surrounded by rejection messages on his old tablet. Her shoulders slumped as she scrolled through another automated response. "Any luck?" Marcus asked, though her expression gave him the answer. 23 applications today," Lyra said. "All rejected within hours. Most don't even give a reason. The ones that do all say the same thing. We don't sponsor work permits for Kepler 442 citizens." Marcus hung up his jacket and started making dinner. He had learned that Lyra enjoyed watching him cook, finding human food preparation fascinating. Tonight was pasta with tomato sauce, nothing fancy but filling. "Maybe we're approaching this wrong," Marcus said as he stirred the sauce. "Official channels aren't working. What about unofficial ones?" "You mean illegal work?" Lyra shook her head. "I've seen what happens to aliens caught working without permits. Deportation if they're lucky, prison if they're not, and deportation for me means being dumped at the nearest non-human station with no way home." Marcus set a bowl of pasta in front of her. "There has to be something. You're too talented to waste away here." Lyra smiled sadly. "Talent doesn't matter if no one will look past what I am." After dinner, they sat on the couch watching the news. The reporter was discussing new trade agreements between Earth and various alien worlds. Kepler 442 wasn't mentioned. It never was. Too small, too far away, too unimportant to matter to Earth's government. "Tell me more about your engineering work," Marcus said, muting the television. Lyra's face lit up. It always did when she talked about her profession. "I specialized in adaptive navigation systems. Space is never empty, you know. There's always debris, radiation fields, gravity wells. A good navigation system doesn't just plot a course. It thinks, adapts, finds new solutions when the original path becomes impossible." "Sounds complicated." "The math is beautiful," Lyra said dreamily. "Each calculation building on the last, creating patterns that can predict and avoid danger. I once designed a system that guided a ship through the Magellan debris field without a single course correction." Marcus had an idea forming. "Could you still design systems like that? I mean, without your old equipment?" "Theoretically, yes. The principles are all in my head. But I'd need access to computers, modeling software, testing systems, all things I can't afford and can't access without credentials." "What if I knew someone who might help?" Lyra turned to him, hope flickering in her silver eyes. Who? Marcus hesitated. He hadn't spoken to Jake Morrison in 2 years, not since their falling out over a business deal gone wrong. But Jake owned a small shipping company that operated on the edges of legality. If anyone would hire an undocumented alien, it would be him. An old friend. Sort of. We didn't part on good terms, but he might be willing to meet you. He runs cargo ships to the outer colonies. Always complaining about navigation problems in the asteroid belt. Would he really consider hiring me? Jake cares about 2 things, money and efficiency. If you can save him both, he won't care if you're from Kepler, 442, or the Andromeda Galaxy? Lyra grabbed Marcus's hand, squeezing tight. Thank you. Even if nothing comes of it, thank you for trying. Marcus felt warmth spread through his chest at her touch. Over the past weeks, he had grown used to her presence. The apartment no longer felt empty. He had someone to come home to, someone who asked about his day and shared her own thoughts. It was dangerous, this attachment. Lyra would leave eventually, one way or another, but for now, he let himself enjoy not being alone. The next morning, Marcus called Jake from work. The conversation was tense, full of old grievances and careful words. But when Marcus mentioned he knew an engineer who could solve Jake's navigation problems, curiosity won over resentment. Fine, Jake said. Bring your friend to the warehouse tomorrow night, 9 o'clock. If she's half as good as you claim, maybe we can work something out. Marcus felt both relief and worry. Jake's warehouse was in the industrial district, a place where legal and illegal business mixed freely. Not dangerous exactly, but not safe either. Still, it was a chance. That evening, Marcus found Lyra trying on different combinations of his clothes, trying to look professional. Everything was too big for her, but she had used safety pins and rolled sleeves to make it work. How do I look? She asked, turning in a circle. Like an engineer, Marcus said honestly. Just be yourself. Show him what you know. What if he doesn't like aliens? What if he's just doing this as a favor to you and has no intention of hiring me? Marcus put his hands on her shoulders, feeling how thin they still were despite weeks of regular meals. Then we'll find another way. We don't give up. That's not who we are. Lyra's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. We. You keep saying we. Is that wrong? No, she whispered. It's perfect. The next night, they drove through rain-slicked streets to Jake's warehouse. The building squatted like a metal toad among similar structures, all gray and functional. Security cameras tracked their approach, and Marcus knew they were being watched from the moment they parked. Jake met them at the door. He looked older, hair gone completely gray, but his eyes were still sharp as a blade. He gave Marcus a curt nod, then studied Lyra with unconcealed curiosity. So you're the engineer, Jake said. Marcus says you can solve my navigation problems. That depends on the problems, Lyra replied, her voice steady despite her nerves. Jake led them inside, past stacks of cargo containers to a small office. The walls were covered with star charts and shipping routes. A holographic display showed the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, dotted with red marks. See those red zones? Jake pointed at the display. Navigation hazards, rocks moving in unpredictable patterns, magnetic fields that scramble instruments, debris from mining operations. I lose time and fuel going around them. Sometimes I lose ships trying to go through them. Lyra stepped closer to the display, her silver eyes reflecting the light. She studied the patterns, head tilted slightly. Marcus watched her transform from the nervous woman in ill-fitting clothes to the confident engineer she had once been. Your problem isn't the hazards, Lyra said after a long moment. It's that you're using static navigation models. The belt isn't static. It's a living system constantly changing. You need adaptive algorithms that learn from each passage. Easy to say, Jake challenged. Harder to implement. Lyra smiled. May I? Jake gestured to his computer terminal. Lyra sat down and began working, her fingers flying over the keys. Code scrolled across the screen, mathematical equations that looked like alien language to Marcus. But Jake leaned forward, understanding dawning on his face. This is brilliant, Jake muttered. You're not plotting routes through safe zones. You're predicting where safe zones will be. Exactly, Lyra said, still typing. The system learns from every ship movement, every sensor reading. Within 6 months, it will know the belt better than any human navigator. Fuel efficiency increases by 30% minimum. Transit time decreases by half. She worked for another hour, building the framework of a navigation system, unlike anything Marcus had seen. Jake asked technical questions that went over Marcus's head, but Lyra answered each one with confidence and detail. Finally, she sat back. This is just a basic outline. To fully implement it, I would need access to your ship computers, sensor data from previous runs, and about 3 weeks of development time. Jake was quiet for a long moment, calculating. Marcus held his breath. I can't officially hire you, Jake said finally. The paperwork would bring inspectors I don't want, but I can contract you as an independent consultant. Cash payments, no questions asked. If this system works as promised, there will be bonuses. Enough to buy passage wherever you want to go. Lyra's voice trembled. You're serious? I'm always serious about money, Jake said. Can you start tomorrow? Yes, Lyra breathed. Yes, absolutely. They worked out details. Lyra would work from the warehouse using Jake's equipment. The hours would be flexible, allowing her to avoid times when inspectors might visit. Payment would be weekly, in cash. As they drove home, Lyra was quiet. Marcus glanced over to see tears streaming down her face. Hey, he said softly. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, she said. Everything's right. For the first time since the pirates attacked, something is going right. She looked at him. Because of you. You got the job because you're brilliant, Marcus said. I just made an introduction. You saved my life, Lyra said firmly. I was dying in that storage room, not just from hunger, from despair. I had given up. Then you appeared with a sandwich and kindness I had stopped believing existed. Marcus felt his own eyes burning. You saved mine too. I just didn't know I needed saving. They drove the rest of the way in comfortable silence, hands clasped over the center console. The next few weeks fell into a new pattern. Lyra left early for the warehouse, returning late but energized. She talked excitedly about her work, about problems solved and improvements made. Jake's pilots were already reporting better routes, safer passages. Marcus found himself looking forward to evenings more than he had in years. They cooked together now, Lyra having learned basic human recipes. They watched movies, Lyra delighting in human entertainment that was so different from her world's formal presentations. They talked about everything and nothing, two lonely souls finding comfort in shared company. One evening, Marcus came home to find the apartment dark, except for candles on the dining table. Lyra had prepared dinner, his favorite beef stew that she had practiced making 3 times before getting right. What's the occasion? Marcus asked. It's been 2 months since you found me, Lyra said. On Kepler 442, we celebrate such moments. The anniversary of when life changed direction. They ate by candlelight, talking about those 2 months. How far Lyra had come from the starving woman in the storage room, how much Marcus's life had changed from empty routines to shared purpose. I got paid today, Lyra said as they cleared the dishes. A bonus. Jake's fuel cost dropped 40% this month. That's amazing. It's enough, Lyra said quietly. Combined with what I've saved, it's enough for passage home. Marcus felt the words like a physical blow. He had known this day would come, but knowing hadn't prepared him for the reality. Lyra could leave, would leave, should leave. She had family on Kepler 442, a life interrupted by pirates and bad luck. When? He managed to ask. There's a ship leaving for the outer systems in 3 weeks. From there, I can book passage to Kepler 442. I could be home within 2 months. Marcus forced a smile. That's wonderful. You must be excited. Lyra studied his face. Aren't you going to ask me to stay? How can I? This was always temporary. You have a home, a career waiting for you. I won't be selfish enough to ask you to give that up for... He gestured around the small apartment. For what? Lyra challenged. For the man who saved my life? Who gave me hope when I had none? Who made me feel valued and wanted for the first time in my life? Lyra... She stood abruptly. I need to think. Lyra retreated to her room, leaving Marcus alone with the dying candles. He sat at the table, wrestling with words he wanted to say but couldn't. Stay. Please stay. I love you. But how could he ask her to choose him over her entire world? Later, unable to sleep, Marcus found Lyra on the small balcony, staring at the stars barely visible through the city's glow. Can you see Kepler 442 from here? He asked. No, it's too far, too faint. But I know where it is. She pointed toward a section of sky. Right there, invisible but real. You miss it. Every day, but... She turned to face him. I've learned something in these 2 months. Home isn't just a place. It's where you're understood, where you're valued, where someone sees you as more than your species or your documentation status. Lyra, I called the shipping company today, she interrupted. Asked about their policies for human-alien couples, hypothetically. Marcus's heart stopped. What did they say? That if I had a human sponsor, someone willing to vouch for me, sign papers, take responsibility, I could apply for provisional residency. It would take time, bureaucracy, but eventually I could work legally, live legally, build a life. Are you asking me to sponsor you? Lyra laughed, a sound like silver bells. Marcus Chen, you brilliant dense man, I'm asking you to marry me. Marcus stared at her, this beautiful alien woman with silver eyes and blue-tinted skin who had crashed into his life and filled all its empty spaces. Marry you? It's practical, Lyra said quickly. Marriage provides legal protection, a pathway to citizenship. Jake has already agreed to sponsor my work permit once I have legal status. We could... Marcus kissed her, cutting off her practical arguments. When they pulled apart, both were breathless. I don't care about practical, Marcus said. I care about you. Yes, I'll marry you, not for papers or legal status, because I love you, because these 2 months have been the best of my life, because the thought of you leaving makes me feel like I'm dying. Now Lyra was crying again, but smiling through the tears. On Kepler 442, we have a saying, love is the gravity that holds souls in orbit. I thought it was just poetry, but now I understand. I'm caught in your gravity, Marcus Chen, and I don't want to escape. They held each other on the balcony, 2 unlikely souls from different worlds finding home in each other's arms. The city hummed around them, indifferent to their joy. But inside the small apartment, love had transformed empty rooms into a universe of possibility. The next morning, they began planning a future neither had imagined possible. There would be challenges, immigration paperwork, cultural differences, the judgment of those who couldn't understand their bond, but they would face them together. Marcus looked at Lyra over breakfast, seeing not an alien refugee but the woman who had brought light back into his life. She smiled at him, reaching across the table to take his hand. No regrets? She asked. Only one, Marcus said. I wish I'd found you sooner. You found me exactly when we needed each other, Lyra said. That's how the universe works, random chances that turn out to be destiny. Marcus squeezed her hand, feeling the truth of her words. A routine maintenance check had led him to a storage room where an alien woman was starving. His simple kindness had sparked a connection that transcended species and circumstances. Two solitudes had indeed become a community, and that community had become love. As they cleared the breakfast dishes together, moving in easy synchronization, Marcus realized something. He had thought he was saving Lyra that night in the storage room, but she had saved him just as much, from loneliness, from empty routines, from a life half-lived. Together, they had found what both had been missing: home. The courthouse marriage had been simple: just Marcus, Lyra, Jake as their witness, and a tired judge who barely looked up from the paperwork. But tonight would be different. Tonight, they would celebrate properly. Marcus adjusted his tie for the third time, nervous as a teenager. In the 2 months since their courthouse wedding, life had transformed in ways he never imagined. Lyra's provisional residency had been approved. Her work with Jake's company had expanded to other shipping firms. She was building a reputation as the best navigation engineer in the sector. "You look handsome," Lyra said from the bedroom doorway. Marcus turned and lost his breath. She wore a dress of deep purple that complemented her natural coloring perfectly. Her silver eyes sparkled with happiness. She had gained healthy weight, no longer the starving woman he'd found. Now she glowed with life and purpose. "You're beautiful," Marcus said. "Jake's wife helped me choose the dress. She said purple would bring out my eyes." Lyra smoothed the fabric nervously. "Do I look human enough?" Marcus crossed to her, taking her hands. "You look like yourself. That's all you ever need to be." They were hosting a small reception at Jake's restaurant. Nothing fancy, just friends and colleagues who had become their chosen family over these months. The same people who had looked past species differences to see two souls in love. The restaurant was warm with golden light when they arrived. Jake had decorated simply but elegantly. Their small guest list was already gathered. Jake's wife Sarah, who had become Lyra's first female friend. Tom and Eddie from Marcus's work, who had initially been skeptical, but won over by Lyra's genuine warmth. Dr. Patel, who had been treating Lyra and marveling at Keplerian physiology. A handful of others who had shown kindness when it mattered. "There they are," Jake called out. "The couple of the hour." Applause greeted them. Lyra pressed close to Marcus, still sometimes overwhelmed by human social gatherings. But she smiled, genuine joy radiating from her. The evening unfolded beautifully. Good food, better company, stories shared with laughter. Tom told embarrassing tales of Marcus from their early days at the spaceport. Sarah shared how Lyra had revolutionized not just Jake's business, but 3 other shipping companies, all while maintaining her humility. "I need to say something," Jake announced, standing with his glass raised. The room quieted. 2 months ago, Marcus called me about an alien engineer who needed work. I almost said no. Old grudges, old stupidity, but I'm glad I didn't. He looked at Lyra. "You saved my business. The new navigation system has cut costs by half and eliminated accidents completely. But more than that, you reminded me that talent and character matter more than origin or species." Jake turned to Marcus. "And you stubborn fool. You found love in the most unlikely place and had the courage to embrace it. You both remind us that humanity isn't about being human. It's about compassion, connection, and choosing love over fear." To Marcus and Lyra, Jake raised his glass. "May your orbit around each other never decay." The toast was echoed warmly. Lyra wiped tears from her eyes, the good kind that came from belonging. Later, as the evening wound down, Marcus found himself outside with Tom, who had needed a smoke break. "Never thought I'd see you like this," Tom said. "Happy, I mean. Really happy." "Neither did I," Marcus admitted. She's good for you, and you're good for her. That's all that matters, right? Right. Tom stubbed out his cigarette. Maria would have liked her. Marcus's throat tightened. It was the first time anyone had mentioned his late wife in relation to Lyra. You think so? Are you kidding? Maria always said you had too much love to waste on loneliness. She would have been thrilled to see you use it again. Inside, Marcus found Lyra deep in conversation with Dr. Patel about Keplerian biology. She was animated, using her hands to illustrate some point about atmospheric adaptation. The doctor listened with fascination. Marcus, Dr. Patel called him over, your wife is explaining why Keplerians can process Earth food despite evolved differences. Fascinating stuff. She's brilliant, Marcus said simply. I just pay attention, Lyra demurred. On Kepler 442, we're taught that understanding begins with observation. The party continued past midnight. Stories were shared, plans discussed. Jake mentioned expanding operations to include routes to Kepler 442 once trade agreements were established. Sarah invited Lyra to join her book club, a gesture of inclusion that meant more than she knew. Finally, the evening ended. Hugs were exchanged, promises to meet again soon. Marcus and Lyra walked to their car through empty streets, her hand in his. That was perfect, Lyra said. I've never felt so accepted. You've earned it. Your work, your kindness, just being yourself. People see who you really are now. They drove home to their apartment. The same small space where their story began, but transformed. Lyra's touches were everywhere. Plants from her world that Jake had smuggled in, thriving in Earth's atmosphere. Art that blended human and Keplerian aesthetics. The spare room converted to her office, where she designed navigation systems that were revolutionizing space travel. As they prepared for bed, Lyra stood by the window, looking at stars. What are you thinking? Marcus asked. About probability, she said. The chances of a pirate attack at that exact moment, of being abandoned at this specific spaceport, of you working late that particular night, of choosing that storage room to hide in. Each decision, each moment had to align perfectly for us to meet. Sounds impossible when you put it like that. Lyra turned to him. On Kepler 442, we would call it fate. But humans have a better word. Serendipity. Happy accidents that change everything. Is that what we are? A happy accident? The happiest, she confirmed, moving into his arms. 6 months later, everything changed again. Marcus was reviewing maintenance schedules when his supervisor called him in. He expected a routine meeting. Instead, he found Lyra in the office, practically vibrating with excitement. Tell him, she said to the supervisor. Marcus, how would you feel about a promotion? His supervisor asked. Chief of Operations for our new facility. New facility? The spaceport is opening a branch on Europa Station. Bigger operations, better pay, housing included. The supervisor smiled. Your wife has been contracted to design the entire navigation network for the shipping lanes between Jupiter and the outer planets. We figured you might want to go together. Marcus looked at Lyra, who was trying and failing to contain her grin. You knew about this? For a week. It was killing me not to tell you. But I wanted to make sure you'd get the position first. Jake recommended you. Said you're the best maintenance chief in the system. Europa Station, Marcus repeated. That's closer to shipping lanes to Kepler 4042, Lyra finished. Once trade opens officially, we could visit my world. You could meet my family, see where I grew up. The supervisor left them to discuss it. Marcus felt overwhelmed by the sudden possibilities. It's a big change, Lyra said, suddenly uncertain. We'd leave Earth, your home. Marcus thought about it. His apartment, his routines, the life he'd built. All of it had been empty before Lyra. Home wasn't a place anymore. It was wherever she was. When do we leave? He asked. Lyra laughed and kissed him. 3 months. Enough time to pack, say goodbyes, prepare. The news spread quickly through their circle. Jake threw another party, this one tinged with sadness at their leaving, but excitement for their future. Dr. Patel gave them medical supplies and instructions for maintaining Lyra's health in different gravities. Tom and the other mechanics presented Marcus with a custom tool set, engraved with, "For fixing things among the stars." Sarah organized a going-away gift that made Lyra cry. A photo album filled with pictures from their time on Earth, the courthouse wedding, their celebration dinner, casual moments caught at gatherings, a record of the community that had embraced them. "So you don't forget us," Sarah said. "Impossible," Lyra whispered. "You gave me hope when I had none. All of you." Their last night in the apartment was bittersweet. Boxes packed, furniture sold or donated. Only their bed remained, and the window where they had made so many plans. "Scared?" Marcus asked as they lay together. "Terrified," Lyra admitted. "But excited, too. We're building something new, together. No matter what happens, we face it together." "Together," she agreed. The transport ship to Europa Station was cramped, but comfortable. Marcus and Lyra had a small cabin with a porthole showing the stars. As Earth shrank behind them, Marcus felt no regret, only anticipation. "Look!" Lyra pointed through the porthole. "Can you see it?" Marcus followed her finger to a faint star among millions. "Kepler 442? "Home," she said. Then she looked at him. "One of my homes. The other is wherever you are." The journey to Europa took 2 weeks. They spent it planning, dreaming, making love, and marveling at the unlikeliness of their story. An alien woman, starving and abandoned. A lonely human who chose kindness over indifference. A sandwich that became a conversation that became a life together. Europa Station was everything Earth wasn't, gleaming, new, full of possibility. Their assigned quarters were 3 times larger than the old apartment, with a spectacular view of Jupiter's roiling surface. Marcus threw himself into organizing the new maintenance facility. Lyra worked 18-hour days designing navigation systems that would make travel safer for everyone. They met other mixed couples, human and alien, building lives together on the frontier. One evening, as Jupiter Rise painted their quarters in amber light, Lyra made an announcement. "I heard from the Kepler 442 embassy today," she said carefully. "The trade routes are opening next year." "That's wonderful. You can see your family again." "Marcus." She took his hands. "There's something else. Dr. Patel was wrong about one thing, about human Keplerian biology." "What do you mean?" She placed his hand on her stomach. "We're going to have a baby." Marcus stared at her, then at where his hand rested. "But how?" "The doctor said—" "Apparently love finds a way," Lyra said, tears streaming. "Are you happy?" "Happy?" Marcus pulled her close. "I'm ecstatic, terrified, but ecstatic. A baby, our baby. The first human Keplerian hybrid," Lyra said. "He or she will belong to both worlds." They held each other as Jupiter dominated the sky outside. Marcus thought about the journey from that storage room to here, the fear, the uncertainty, the choice to help someone in need. Every moment had led to this, a family, a future, a love that transcended species and space. "Thank you," Lyra whispered. "For what?" "For the sandwich. For seeing me as more than just an alien. For choosing love over fear. For giving me not just one life, but 3. Yours, mine, and now our child's." Marcus kissed her forehead. "Thank you for being brave enough to trust a stranger, for bringing light into my darkness, for showing me that home isn't a place but a person." Outside their window, stars wheeled in ancient patterns. Somewhere among them was Earth, where their story began. Somewhere else was Kepler 442, where new chapters awaited. But here and now, in each other's arms with new life growing between them, they were exactly where they belonged. The alien woman had been starving. One human's kindness had made her cry. But from that simple act of compassion had grown something miraculous: love without borders, family without limits, hope without end. As they watched Jupiter rise together, Marcus reflected on his grandmother's wisdom about measuring a person by what they do when no one is watching. He had given a sandwich to a starving woman because it was right. That choice had changed everything. "I love you," he told Lyra. "All of you. Forever. And I love you," she replied. "My savior, my heart, my home." In the vast emptiness of space, two souls from different worlds had found each other. And in finding each other, they had found everything. The stars continued their eternal dance, indifferent to the small miracles of connection below. But Marcus and Lyra didn't need the universe's attention. They had each other, and that was universe enough. Their child would be born between worlds, citizen of both, belonging fully to neither but loved beyond measure. The first of many. Perhaps as humanity slowly learned that love knew no species, no boundaries, no limits but those we impose on ourselves. And it all began with a sandwich, freely given. A moment of kindness that rippled outward, changing lives, building bridges, proving that humanity's greatest strength was not its technology or ambition, but its capacity for compassion. The alien woman had been starving. One human's kindness had made her cry. But those tears had watered the seeds of something beautiful, and in the soil of understanding, nourished by love, the future grew bright and boundless as the stars themselves.